I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people that are watching us saying, okay, we know where Canada is, in British Columbia on the West Coast, right. And we are in the center of British Columbia, Prince George. That is 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers for our European friends. And it's in the middle of the province, northwest, east to south, big province. And today we have a very, very interesting guest. Her name is Dr. Shanea Clancy, and Shanea is an amazing, can I call you Shanea, doctor?
You call me whatever, just don't call me late for dinner.
I like that. Sounds good, Shanea. So Dr. Shanea is a entrepreneurial international speaker, forensic nurse, business strategist, personal and professional development trainer, addiction mental health expert, consultant, and international bestseller selling author. And oh my God, Shanea, we got a lot to talk about. And with a unique blend of clinical experience, personal experience, and executive insight, you have been featured on numerous media outlets all over the place. So tell us about yourself. How did it all start, Shanea?
Sure. So I'm the oldest of 6. And, the oldest usually has to pave the way so that the baby gets their own way by the time that comes around. And so type A by nature, and always been passionate about helping and serving others, and have just enjoyed the journey along the way. Actually, I was involved in a really horrific vehicle crash that really changed the trajectory of my entire life and career. So that is the pivotal moment that I would say that it all started.
So what happened? How old were you? Were you still young when the vehicle?
I was 21. So okay. I would say I was young. It's coming up on almost 20 years. Don't do the math because you'll know I'm almost 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a double fatal vehicle crash. And that is what really changed, like I said, my outlook on life. Life is so short. And what am I here for? What's my purpose, my mission, and how do I look forward?
And how quickly it all can change.
Yes. For good or worse. Everybody always feels that it can change, and we have that negative connotation, right? Automatically that it can change for the worst, but you can be in an awful situation and make one decision that changes it for the best.
Exactly. So in what part, you're in the United States, in what part of the United States are you located?
So I'm in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, most people know, or Philadelphia, but I'm by Pittsburgh, about 45 minutes north.
Okay. And Pittsburgh is a very big city and a very big state as well. So have you always lived in that area, or?
I have, born and raised.
Yes. And then the universities that your education, if I look at your education, you're entrepreneurial, you have an MBA, I believe, you're a forensic nurse, a business strategist, personal professional development trainer. So where did you, and then obviously you're an author, and all of that doesn't come automatic. I'm an author as well, but it's not easy to become an author and start writing a book. So tell us about your background in terms of all the different specialties that you have, and then what brought you to becoming an author, and tell us about your books as well at the end.
Absolutely. The entire journey of the entrepreneurial spirit started whenever I was getting my doctorate in nursing after the forensic nursing degree. And I realized how many nurses did not feel like they had a voice or a seat at the table, that they weren't leaders by nature. Nurses are the most trusted profession, and we are leaders. And I just saw a lot of my peers did not have that thought process. And after getting my doctorate, I realized, maybe I should be done with school, because you're going to think I'm a little off my rocker. But I was either pregnant or just delivered one of our 3 kiddos all through school.
Yeah.
My master's, doctorate, and then I went back for my executive MBA in healthcare. And towards the end of that degree, I realized I'm going to start my own business, and I am going to write a book. I was actually at a local conference. I heard Auntie Ann Baylor, she's the founder of Annie M Pretzels, share her story. And it was in that moment I had the download, hey, you're going to write your book. You're going to write your testimony. And that has really opened up a incredible amount of doors, just being obedient.
So, is there a copy of your book on your right-hand side behind you?
Which right? This one. Yes.
Yeah. So is that?
So this is the first one I wrote.
Have you written more than one book, or?
Yeah, I've done 10 in the past year.
Oh my goodness! And that one is then the first one you did?
Yes, and this became a #1 best-selling book. And Transforming Trauma into Triumph is the name of it. And this is my testimony, everything, all of it, guts and glory.
So transforming trauma, referring to your car accident that was very, very, very serious, that changed your life, as you indicated, at a very young age, because you were just at 21, and it started to transform your life into where you are as the foundation as to where you are today.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so, and the reason that you wrote the book is that you attended a presentation of a person, I forgot her name now, that...
Well, there was a lot of celebrities there, and it was Auntie Ann Baylor. So Ann Baylor, who is the founder of Annie M Pretzels.
Okay.
And when I heard her speak, that's when I was inspired to write my book.
So what did you hear from her that changed your life? Because I look at being an author changes your life as another major piece in what you do in life as you go through it. And making the decision is one thing. I did, a lot of people said to me, hey, John, you had such an interesting life, you should write a book about it. So I did that for 20 years. I tried start, stop, until I was already in my mid-70s and saying, if I don't do it now, it will never happen. And so, and I wrote one book, and this one, Against All Odds, and saying that it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And so, and then from there on in, I did other books as well, but the start of that was critical, because I had never done that, but I had thought about it. And then in my mid-70s, I had to make a decision. If I don't do it now, it will never happen. And I felt that it was important to me to share with others my experience and how it affected my life and still affects it, not only in the past, but also in the future, and still does today. I'm turning 85 in the next month and a half. 85 years young, I say. Thanks, Shanea. And
so you're a Scorpio too?
I am. November the 1st.
When is your birthday?
November the 1st.
I'm the 4th.
There you go. So all the same qualities, and so people ask me that, and I don't know all that much about it, but say, yeah, being a Scorpio is very, very unique and very, very good. I say, okay, I'll take it. So I was born in Holland, in northeastern Holland, as you may know, and so I came to Canada and then started out with a dream and still am doing that even still now. But the most important part in my life is quality of life. And so I'm very lucky. I'm married to my wife, Sharon. She is a vegetarian, and I didn't always listen quite as good as I could have. I was not abusive in terms of the things that I ate, but you know, it took me. I had a case of diverticulitis that, and that again for the people watching. I'm not a doc. You are. In terms of, I always say if it hurts on the right side, it's like the appendix, and on the left side, it could well be a colon, it could well be diverticulitis. In my case, it ruptured. And so, and so that gave me about 48 hours or so to get something done about it because the toxins attacked the other organs. And I somehow, a whole story about that, how did I make it to the hospital? And so they operated on me. They took 20 centimeters out of my colon. And the doc the following morning said, you came that close. And so that changed everything. And that was in 2008. And so, and then I started rethinking my life in terms of listening better to Sharon, in terms of diet. And so I then became, I called it 80-20. I'm probably a 90-10 now. And then I did the other thing, going to the gym became very important. Before that, I was the kind of individual that at the end of the year, we say, I'm going to do this, that, and that, and that, and I'm going to buy a membership to the gym. And then 2 weeks later, I can find 200 reasons why I'm too busy to go to the gym. But not this time.
You became the #1 bodybuilder in Western, right?
Yes. So then I got a trainer, and then I was committed because my life is all about appointments, as likely yours is. And then if I have appointments, always make sure I meet the appointments. So, and then I was, in 2009, when I recovered from my diverticulitis operation, I then worked out for 6 years with the trainer. And somebody came up to me and my trainer and said, hey, John, have you ever thought about competing? I said, me? Yeah. And so I said, okay, why not? So I did. And then 2017, 2018, you know, so I was already nearly 68 years old. And I competed bodybuilding, and here's a picture of me today. But then I started bodybuilding and became second bodybuilding in northern BC, third in physique, the same in the provincial that qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And then COVID came, but now again I'm training for, that's a picture of me recently. This is one of the second last book that I did, Living Young, Dying Old. And even in the mid-80s, it is possible. It's not so much me as a bodybuilder, but just using that as an example. It's all about quality of life.
Mm-hmm. I love that for you. That's beautiful.
And so that's what I do now. And the amazing part about it all, Shannon, is that I do all the shopping even for my wife. And when I go to a grocery store, I stay on the outside mainly because all the aisles are full of food that is processed. And if you don't know what is in it or super processed, then so that I just stay with the greens usually and the organic, and be very careful about diet. And, you know, so, and that's what I like.
Awesome.
So tell us more.
When are you going to compete again?
I'm trying to go early 2026 when I'm in my 86th year. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I love it though, Shanea. I love my diet. I love the podcasting, mental activity, and I love going to the gym and I look forward to going to the gym, and I train hard. That's what I like to do. Stay physically fit, mentally fit, and all those things. So Tell us more about you, though, in terms of that. You started writing when? So you had the accident when you were 21, then you went through the schooling, and as you indicated, you have 3 children. As you went through pregnancy, birth, and between that, did a variety of things to work on your longer term career and get all the credentials that you have in nursing, an MBA in business, entrepreneurship, and all of those things. At what point did you say, after when you saw that presentation, that you said, I'm going to write?
In that moment,
Yes.
I knew I was going to write my book. It had kind of sat in my email outbox, kind of a draft of it for quite a while. I would say at least 10 years. But I'm thankful I did not publish it. And here's why, because I needed to go through more experiences and I needed to mature even more. Had I put out what I had thought was writing, it was really just like therapeutic and word vomit. Like, if I'm being fully transparent, it would not have been able to make the impact that my book does today. So as soon as I heard her speak, and when she shared her story, it was really about overcoming a lot of adversity. And she actually left the Amish community and ventured out into becoming an entrepreneur and really beating a lot of the odds. And so it just was, like I said, I say a godsend that I went to this conference to begin with, because I didn't even have tickets. They were sold
Pretty
out.
coincidental?
No, I don't think it's divine. I think it was divine. Absolutely.
Right.
It could have been coincidental, but it was that morning. Somebody had said they had tickets available and we went. And that really changed my life. So that's when I started writing my book, finished it before I graduated my executive MBA in healthcare. Honestly, maybe wrote it in a month and a half max, and hired somebody to edit because I was not familiar with that process, but also wanted to learn. So I now help people write their books and share their stories. And every other book you see, I've done and learned the process to be able to execute and help others.
So what I do in my books is that I'm a storyteller. That's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that, and you're also an in-demand global speaker, and I am as well, and I love to do presenting, and so was not always that way, though. I went through difficult periods as well, and what I find interesting about your inspiration speaker, she was Amish, and then thinking about growing up Amish, for those that are maybe not so familiar with it, of our international listeners, is Amish is very strict in terms of based on religion. A lot of it came from the Europe, Northern Europe in particular, Germany, Holland, and those kind of places, and very strict in terms of how they live and how they don't introduce modern things and all of those. And to step away from that is, although there is a period in which they are allowed to do that before they are 18, I believe. I'm just kind of rethinking, and then they stay in it and they become part of it and stay very, very close and are very industrious and all those things. But it's very strict in terms of stepping away from that is a challenge, to say the least. And it would have been a challenge for that person, and then for that person to become a speaker as well is very, very inspiring, but at the same time must have been a real challenge, but must have made her unique in that area.
Yeah, she definitely is. You have to look up her story when you have a free moment, and who knows? might impact you as well.
Yes, I like that about that, in particular the different religions that
Hmm.
in Amish is one of those. So the other part is that you're also an in-demand speaker, and so are you are, I believe, have skill sets in terms of being. Some people are good writers already, and uh, and were you a good writer already from an early start in terms of you likely are in all the things that you had to do, you had to be, and it came somewhat natural to you, would you say?
I would say initially, yes. I've actually had a concussion or two. And so that has, I felt initially stifled that writing. I'm very big into poetry and just kind of journaling. And once I got more involved with that, the writing components came back. Absolutely. Hmm.
Now, the other part about it, you're a good presenter, you're a good speaker. And so, which I believe is critically important. Were you always, other than during the period of the accident and having had several injuries, how did you call it again?
Concussion. That's why my book's Trauma to Triumph. So it's all woven throughout. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was always a good speaker, confident. I love debating, love negotiation. So that was something that kind of came natural to me as a born leader. And I think after a little bit of fine tuning, there's always room to improve. The ums, the hus, right? We always come in and stutter a little bit, even if we're good, but just practicing and kind of getting that niche down was really important for me personally and professionally.
Yeah, so in my case, was born in 1940, and that was the beginning of the war years, South Artemis that we should not have seen, blah, blah, blah. And then we
Hmm.
were liberated by the Canadian Army. That made such an impression on me that I knew when I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times. And they said to my parents, what are we going to do with this guy? And they said, well, send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So what they did is they sent me to a furniture factory to become a furniture maker. The
Hmm.
teachers at the time, and I love teachers and all the other things about teaching, but they were not qualified at the time to understand neurodiversity issues. And
Hmm.
a lot of times inattention was an issue that I was struggling with. And so hence, the kids can be very hard on each other. So after I failed grade 7 for the 3rd time, and I then became a laborer at 12 and a half years old. I'm proud of that today. But but then it was kind of looked down at, and
Hmm.
saying that John will not amount to much, because he's not smart enough, and so they were fairly blunt about it. I knew I was just as smart as all the other ones, not smarter then, but and I had to start anew again, and I wanted to
Hmm.
start with my dream of going to Canada. I worked in the furniture industry. My grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked in the lumber industry, and I wanted to build a sawmill. And so I flew to Canada. I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, flew to Montreal, landed in Montreal, couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job, and then took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. And so came off the train in Vancouver, went to the immigration department, and couldn't speak English, but fortunately it was a German fellow there, and I told him what I wanted to do. He said, go to Prince George. 500 miles north. That's where they're building sawmills. That's where the opportunity. So I did. And then I came off the bus, the Greyhound bus. Here, I can still see where the Greyhound used to stop here. and I had stepped off the bus with my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, couldn't speak language, didn't have a job, didn't know a soul. And I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But what I did have is attitude. I've always, through all the adversity, I've always been positive. Now more so, if you're negative, don't even come close to me. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%, and I still do that now. And work ethic, to me, has always been important. Even now, I work harder than anybody. In all the companies that I have, I'm usually the first one there, the last one to leave. And then, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so I like to do that. And then, obviously, the other parts about it is that, but the foundation for me has been attitude, passion, work ethic, still is the foundation. And then the other part about me, I had self-confidence issues. And even when I already was successful here, everybody said, oh, you're so successful and all the other kind of things. I didn't feel that way. And then even not when I had already a number of companies. And then, the other thing that changed my life is that in 1990, I was already 50 years old, already had been here for nearly 25 years. And somebody said to me, I could interact with 3 or 4 people in the company maybe, but outside of that, I was not good as a communicator. And somebody said to me, hey, John, why don't you come with me to an organization called Toastmasters? I said, what is that all about? And he said, communication skills. And I said, are they going to ask me any questions? He said, no. I said, because if they do, I'm not going. No, they're not. So just go down. There's about 20 people in. There's millions and millions of people in. For all those people watching us, put in your Google Toastmasters, and it's all about communication skills. Anyway, so I went to the first one, and in the middle of the meeting, somebody said, hey, John, tell us all about you. I said, oh my God, I'll never go back here. But I did. I stayed there for 10 years, became a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level, and it changed my life, as did meeting the Canadian soldiers in Northern Holland in 1945 as a 5-year-old, and my dream was going to Canada, as I did going to Canada, coming out the bus. That changed my life, and the next one that changed my life is Toastmasters. And then for the people watching us and saying, but it's Toastmasters all about it. And all the people that I've seen, new people coming to Toastmasters as beginners and having fear, in a lot of cases, about public speaking, because it's feared more than death in a lot of cases, is that I have seen hundreds and thousands of them coming as new members. But never have I seen anybody as much anxiety as I had. I could have crawled out of there on hands and knees. Please don't let me go that again. But I did. I stayed, and it changed my life. And again, that part was important for me. And then from there and then, other things followed, and then the other thing that changed my life, and I have to share that with you. I went to a bookstore here, and I picked up a book in January of 1997 that changed my life. And it was this book, Driven to Distraction, by Dr. Hollywell. And Dr. Hollywell has written 18 books, 5 of them about distraction. And I picked up this book. I still don't know why, Shanea. I have no idea. Other than I stood there and I started looking at the book, and it's about ADHD. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And
you saw yourself.
I saw myself, and I wrote in, this is the actual book. I wrote in January 1997 in Dutch. I wrote, now I finally know who I am. And so,
wow.
and so the more I read about it, and then the more I Googled it and saying, what is this all about? Dr. Hollywell, ADHD, and has dyslexia. So do I. And so and the more I found out about it is then I felt it's a superpower. But for 5 years, I didn't really talk to anybody about it. And then and when I was 62, I went to my doc. There was a personal friend that lived with our 2 daughters. And he said to me, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, "I think I got ADHD." And so we checked it out. I do. And so, and that again changed my life. And so, I believe it's a superpower in terms of that it makes me different in a lot of ways. And once I understand it, I can then build on that part. And then if I look back to my challenges in school, was that distraction to me was a big challenge, obviously. And, but I was good at numbers, exceptionally good. And I was a good writer, but not a good reader. And even still today, that is the same, so that, but it changed my life. Another element about, as it is about Toastmasters, changed my life. Going to Canada changed my life. The Canadians in being PTSD from this world, seeing far too much during the Second World War, changed my life. And the combination of all of me brought me to today, where we are successful in business. But now I feel more than neurodiversity issues and being able to, through a vehicle like podcasting, share at least part of my story with others that feel the same, wanting to to share with others theirs, as you are doing. And then looking at podcasting, it's only at the beginning. It's exploding around the world. And it is, I believe, the new communication model for the future.
Thank you for sharing all that. The common theme I heard throughout all of that is courage.
Yes, I like that.
Very courageous. I've read a little bit about your story, right? But it's always much more interesting to hear it from someone themselves, you yourself. Thank you for sharing that.
So Shanea, then looking at that and then saying that for being a speaker and a presenter, I would have never thought that I'd be able to do that. But you know what I learned at Toastmasters more than anything? People say to me, "Toastmasters, what is it all about? And what did you accomplish?" I said, what Toastmasters is all about, first and foremost, is becoming a good listener. And the second one, most important, is to stand on your feet and articulate either questions and listen to giving answers and being a communicator on your feet. And then the third one likely is evaluating others making presentations, which is part of Toastmasters. And then the other one is ums and ahs, and I'm looking for the spoon here. That is a very interesting way of how Toastmasters go about that, because every time you say a hum and a haw, you go like, can you hear that? Yeah. So so the interesting part about it. So then I became a presenter or a speaker, and I love to do that. And I know I can say that to you and to the other millions of people that are watching us, but I know I'm a good presenter. And then the other part about it is they may not necessarily remember the things that I spoke about it, other than in a general way, but they never will forget me as the speaker.
And how you made them feel, being relatable.
Exactly. And so that then being said, share with us, you the writer, then how did you become a global level presenter?
Well, once I wrote my book, just as I'm sure that you're familiar with, it leverages you, right? It's almost your business card. And So it puts you in that kind of expert realm automatically with your positioning. But I mean, I've got to be honest, when we're talking about speaking, yes, I was always good at it. Yes, I'm comfortable. But whenever there was that really dark period in my life where I had no idea where my life was headed, and there was so much shame that was inside, it was like talking. You want me to talk? I don't want to talk about any of this, right? I had to work through some things first. And it wasn't until I gained that confidence and that clarity, like you said, articulate, but be able to be relatable. Because we're all, just like how we started this, we're all one decision away from up or down, heads or tails. And so I became certified as a global international addiction nurse. I just said, don't touch your spoon.
Yeah.
And also a fellow of the International Addiction Association of Nursing. And so between those two, as well as the forensic background and mental health expertise, that's really where it's birthed from. It has chosen me. I did not choose it. In fact, I wanted to be a flight nurse. And here we are. So the cards fall as they are destined to be. And I just love meeting people, especially folks as courageous as yourself and relatable. It's just an amazing journey where this would not have happened had some of these moments of darkness or those moments of opportunity presented itself. I wouldn't be as relatable because I didn't go through the trenches to get here to the top. And I don't even think I'm at the top. Is there a top? Is there a summit? It just depends on what you're reaching for.
There isn't.
I don't think there is.
And there shouldn't be, and we don't want it to be, so, but I share with you the feelings that you have about that as well, is saying that, that if it were not for those circumstances, I would not be who I am. And some of it was very, very challenging, very, very difficult. And I wrote about that in my books. And so, the last book that I did, I was going to show you, is because this one came out July 31st, and it's already a bestseller on Amazon. It's the $1 Billion Communication Skills. It's not a book about how to become a billionaire, although you can if you want to. But I shouldn't say that. In order to become this, you have to be a good communicator. And all of the ones that I'm showing, 6 or 7 of them, are all good communicators that didn't become automatically good communicators, but had to learn to become good communicators, meaning develop confidence. And not ego, but confidence in terms of I have the same as you likely have, that even when I give presentations for sizable numbers of people, I still have a sense of anxiety before I stand there, and all of a sudden I can be me, and then it goes. But I must have that to reach excellence where I want to be.
It keeps us in check.
Yeah.
If anybody said they never get nervous when they're speaking, that's a lie. I don't know anybody that isn't. It's just you have to switch that mindset where, hey, it's go time. Once you cross the threshold, there's no going back.
Exactly.
You are on stage, front and center, until you exit the stage.
Exactly. And then I feel good. And then when I'm there, it is me. It comes. Then experience takes over. And that to me is very, very important. The other part that I do is just, because I saw far too much and have all the history of the warriors and all of that, where we as a family went through difficult times collectively. And I feel for the last 10 or 12 years, I have an obligation to share that with others. Why do we have the 2 minutes of silence? What does it really mean? And I do that in particular with young persons. And for the last 10, 12 years, I have spoken to usually at least 3 schools of some sort or another where there are up to 1,000 students from all the grades. and I make a commitment, although it's still emotional for me to speak about issues like that, but I have an obligation to share with them. Why do we need to know, why are the 2 minutes of silence? And what do we want to remember during that time? And so that's what I've done. And then even this year again, the week of the 11th of November, I will again do a number of presentations, both in northern BC and likely one in the Vancouver region as well. And to me, that is very, very important. But even then, they become somewhat emotional for me as well still.
Mm-hmm. Symbolizes the freedom.
Exactly. Yeah. And all those that gave it all, right? So so share with me a little bit more about and especially being a coach, and a lot of times when we have people in executive ranks in particular that go through all the stress and the emotions around it that you focus on in terms of coaching.
So in the executive coaching realm, I often find that a lot of my clients struggle with articulation, struggle with self-confidence, and effective execution. I think those would be the top 3. The reason why, because people are often pushed up through the ranks, or maybe started an entrepreneurial journey, and maybe those components haven't been honed in on. And I think it can be extremely empowering and liberating for the executives, because they realize, okay, I am like everybody else. I can be relatable. We each have our superpowers, but we also have our defaults. And it's a good thing, because if we were all the same, the world would be extremely boring. And why would we want to wake up every day? I would say that that is really the important piece, the confidence. You'd be surprised, maybe not, but maybe to your audience, the amount of people that are in higher ranks or positions still have those insecurities, or what I like to call limiting beliefs. And it's how can you turn that negative internal dialogue to a positive? So, because that rewires your entire body, your entire system. Once you start to lean in and leverage that, it's amazing the changes that can be made, especially in an organization. People want leaders to be authentic, although leaders sometimes think if I'm authentic and I'm too relatable, then I'm vulnerable.
Exactly. And the answer is no, that is not the case. It makes you more like everybody else is. And
we're all the same.
And we're all
Doesn't matter what title we have.
And so for me, it's easy because I own and I'm the sole shareholders of all my companies. I have 10 different companies, and so it's not about that to me, and I'm in a better position than others are, but still the same applies. The ones that are most effective are human and are willing to say, I can't do it alone. I need a team around me. And you don't have to be perfect, or you don't have to put on a portrait of what they perceive to be is a good leader and all the other negative things that may go with that. The other thing that I found interesting is, Shanea, is that with ADHD in particular, and I'm dyslexic, I'm ADHD and I have dyslexia, is that I did a podcast. You're my podcast number 459. I did a podcast 203 with Dr. Hollowell that wrote the book and 18 other ones, amazingly.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you if you got to meet the author. Yes. I was hoping that you did.
Yes. And I speak about it quite frequently, and he is on that podcast, On the Brink 203. And so the amazing thing that I found is that initially, as I said to you, is that I didn't want to tell anybody about it, but at the same time I'm building companies, and so there I go to the bank and try to make a case for getting $1 million, borrow $1 million to build companies, and saying after I make the presentation, saying, oh, by the way, I have to share with you I got a mental disorder as well, and saying, or have ADHD and disabled, have a nice day. I didn't do that, obviously, but the fear was there that it would be looked at in a negative way. And it was, for a period of time, the stigma was looked at as questionable, and people were not open about it. So when I did my podcast with Dr. Hollywell, by then, I already thought he's the expert. I just lived it, in saying that frequency of occurrence, in my mind, I thought initially maybe 6%, 5%, I don't know. And then I thought much higher than that. So I suggested to Dr. Hollywell, maybe up to 18, 20%. And he said, no, John, it's more than 25%. I agree with him. And then the other thing that I said is that in all the time that I've been in board meetings and interacted with very smart people and high levels of management, or in other situations that they were very, very smart, the frequency of occurrence, I believe, of ADHD probably was more than, or at least 50%. He said, no, John, it's more than 75%. I agree with him. And so it became then, and that's why I share my story and other stories like that. And usually what I find in the interactions that I have on Facebook, it is not unknown for me to, at least in one of every 3 or 4 cases, I find people that are ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And are open about
it. It is a superpower. Any mental health is a superpower. We all have that. It's just owning that. I know for myself, I had PTSD after the crash. Who wouldn't?
Yes.
And, any of the transitions, just like you had shared, that were new, unknown, it can be very, very scary. But it's what we do with that makes the difference. And I would like to put a little plug in. I know that it's Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And all of September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. But everybody thinks, there's hard cookie cutter aspects to that. And it's not. It's our unique way that we're made up, or situations that occur, or external forces that we don't understand. And so mental health can play a very huge role into that. Also, you mentioned social media, keeping up with the Joneses. That's everybody's doing that now. And it's just so disheartening to see these young kids not even be able to identify who they are, or be okay to say who they are, because when we went to school, and I appreciate what you said as far as, 3rd grade and repeats, but even so, we did not have cell phones or constant monitoring where your life was on pause at least one time a day. These kids, it's 24 hours. You can't get away from it. And, I just wanted to put that out there, to reach out. It can be, to ourselves, debilitating, or we don't feel validated or heard or enough. But reaching out is the hardest step. It's liberating after that.
Yes. And in particular, as you said, that what we have now, there is to have interaction, social interaction, other than on cell phones and all of that. And sports, it can be a very liberating one for people, for interacting. And, we have to find in our schooling system that with all due respect to teachers and people that are involved in it, the model that we have now, going all the way from kindergarten all the way up to the higher grades, including colleges, universities, need work, in my opinion, as to how do we, are we being effective in it? Are we doing the right things? Do we recognize that at least 30% of the population issues globally have neurodiversity issues that are challenges that we are not necessarily dealing with first and far, recognizing the freedom as willing to be able to talk about it or mention it. And I've done that for years already, but not instantly, not until 5-6 years ago when I started doing podcasts, and I feel that it is important for me to share my story and other people's and write about it, because I believe I have an obligation to do that.
Mm-hmm. I relate 100%. That does resonate with me. That's why I wrote my first book. If it helps one person get unstuck or see their value or their purpose, or that the past does not have to define where they are in life, then I've answered the call at least one time. And you are absolutely correct when it comes to the education system. It can use an overhaul. My daughter just started 2nd grade and they have the kids on iPads. That is how they learn. She brings it home. She takes it to school. And I'm like, why are you teaching the kids to write in 1st grade when you're going to now give them an iPad and they're going to type the rest of it? Handwriting is dying. It's mind-boggling to me that technology is good, but in limited ways, right?
How can we start with interacting with children at a young age more directly and speaking about it, interacting, working with them even from kindergarten going forward, and learning to read to start, and not only to read but to understand and create the interest in books, and starting with something they like, and that involves maybe a lot of other things like that. And I believe that would be very, very important from my perspective. And if we would have done that, then I would have been successful and recognized. And then the other part is that I wrote a book about ADHD that I believe was so important, is this one, Unlocked, and it was kind of interesting, as you probably have experienced as well. I was writing the book, and then I was flying we have a place in Victoria, so I'm in northern British Columbia. So every weekend, on Friday afternoons, I go to Victoria, and then I come back on Mondays, just give myself a break and doing other things in the companies. And I was sitting next to a fellow, and he said, I don't know if you remember me, but you were writing a book and you told me all about it. Have you written it? There was this one, Against All Odds. I said, yeah, I did. I said, I'm working on another book about ADHD. And he said, oh, that's interesting, because he was a professor at the University of British Columbia. And he said, it's an interesting thing that you mentioned that, because we looking at teaching, and rather than somebody being in a classroom for 4 years, hypothetically speaking, be looking more at micro-certification, is saying, what is the core issue that we should be studying here? And the add-ons then become secondary. They are important, but not the critical part. The critical part is the 6 months, hypothetically speaking, or 1 year, whatever it is, the micro-certification issue to become qualified in that area, and then add the other ones to it. And so that would be one step in the right direction, in my opinion, is because one of the challenges that we have in business and all the other things to find skill sets, and especially in nursing, in docs, and especially in other areas, but also in engineering and a lot of other things that we need as we go forward, developing industry, obviously another element that will come into the picture is AI-related issues. We need the people that have the skill sets or the micro-certification issues and still know lots of other stuff, but those are the critical areas.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Huge. Yes. And I would also like to highlight for you earlier, it just came to me that when you were on the show with the author of the book, where he
Dr.
is
Hollywell.
right. Yes, I am not always the best at names at first. That he's the expert. But we are the experts on ourselves, and there's nobody that knows us better than ourselves. So expert, it's hit or miss. That's why I went ahead and got the credentials that I have. Why? Because I've lived it. Some people care about the lived experience, some care about the credentials, and I'm like, I only care about making an impact and a difference. So let's do both, and whatever shoe fits, you take it. Whatever fits your fancy.
Exactly. And what I like about it, Shanea, is that I'm a good presenter. I never thought I would be, but Toastmasters did for me. It triggered me as I am a natural born presenter. That's who I am. And I'm a natural writer. And so I love it to share this 85 years that I have lived and talking about quality of life, talking about a lot of things and neurodiversity issues. And then I love podcasting and so many people, and it's, as I said earlier, is that it is still exploding around the world. So then one day I speak to somebody from the Philippines, the next day somebody from Athens, and then or from Madrid, Spain, or all over the place, and it's amazing. And that's important to me. And then the other one is sharing my experience and saying the first thing that I believe is you can. And do not say you can't, because you can. And you're never too old is my message. And then quality of life is critical. And so for all the reasons that we know, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
it's just amazing. The journey's amazing who you meet along the way if you just are open-minded. Have you ever heard of a sensory diet?
No.
I bring this up because my middle child is borderline on the spectrum. And we're talking about emotional intelligence, and we're talking about these micro skills. And a lot of it has to do with emotional regulation. And I know my parents, that generation, did not grow up being taught emotional regulation. And now my generation is now having to emotionally regulate ourselves as well as our children. And with all the additives that you had mentioned earlier, you're seeing more and more of these things coming out and presenting where there is that dysregulation regardless. And I just wanted to highlight the sensory diet because it is amazing what your body tells you it needs. It's just how we recognize it. And if your audience or yourself gain any value in this, it's literally just different things that you can do that will regulate you based on colors, like blue zone, red zone. And it goes from you're okay to, hey, I'm not okay. I'm almost seeing red. And what can I do to stabilize those emotions? It's pretty interesting.
And is there a book about that, or have you written about that, or?
Maybe I should. I have not researched it. Maybe you and I could write a book together.
I like that, Shanea. Now, so before you go, share once more your first book, but then you have many other ones. And are they all about separate issues, or do they follow? How can people find you and on your website, and then show us once more the initial book that you wrote? I see it over your shoulder there. If you can pick it up once more and show it to us. And it's available on Amazon.
This is on Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, people reach out and I'll sign it, write a little message and mail it to them, but they're all on Amazon. You can find me at Shanea Clancy. That's all my socials. If you want to see my kids doing random funny things and you need a laugh, I'm sure it's on there too, but I'm business as well. Yeah, I keep it authentic. But this is the first one. And we have From Pain to Purpose back here. So this is a compilation of stories that I helped people share their stories. Let's see, Beyond Belief. There's Abundant Life. There's a couple of them, but I have one that'll be out before the end of this year, I think that you would like. It's called Mountaineering Mindset.
So what is it about?
Well, I'm a trained mountaineer. Okay. And so it is about mindset, mental health, and the metaphors along the way between reaching that summit, coming back down to base camp, and just how mental health plays a role in that mindset, and just really overcoming the limiting beliefs that we all have, whether we recognize it or not.
Yes, and the importance of it towards success. And then the other thing that I was going to mention, a lot of people ask me, how do I become successful? It is saying, it is always this way: attitude, passion, work ethic, stay positive, and then success will find you. But you just have to have the ability to recognize it. And that's the key,
Oh, that is, yeah, I love that. And it has your 3 pillars.
And it has the 3 pillars. Dr. Shanea, it was an amazing podcast. Let's make sure we stay in touch. And then I will send you copies of my books, all 5 of them, actually. And I will sign them for you. And I'm not asking for the 10 of yours, but at least the initial... That does not mean that I don't like it. I like to get your mountaineering one once you present it, and maybe you can be again on the podcast. And then I like to see the first one and another one that your choice from.
I will mail them to you as well and sign them with a little note of encouragement.
I like it. Thank you. And then for all the people watching us, and both for Dr. Shanea Clancy, subscribe to us, like it if you like it, and share it with others, or give us comments as to what else you would like to see, both for Dr. Shanea and for myself. Again, thank you for watching. And again, Dr. Shanea, it was an amazing podcast, and let's make sure we stay in touch.
Thank you, John, for having me.
Take care.